Hello and welcome to the session about the new IDS Cockpit. Today we will have a closer look to the new upcoming IDS Cockpit, and I would like to introduce you into the usage of this cockpit. The cockpit covers a broad range of possible applications, from setting up a camera and store the parameters inside of a camera parameter file, or store a parameter set on your PC, up to the direct usage in an application, for example, to take images of your incoming goods. But today I do not want to show you only the function and features of the cockpit. I would like to give you also a hands-on how to set up a good color representation of your camera so that you directly can reuse it in your machine vision application. So we do a white balance, we configure the right dialogues for doing the white balance, we do a white balance, we store the white balance in a so-called parameter set so that you're able to load it in an upcoming application. Why is this good for? It saves you time and therefore money, because you do not have to program every parameter inside of your application. So the only thing you have to do is to program a line of code to load the parameter set either from camera or from file, and then let's go on with your application. So let us pick apart the brand new cockpit and start with the view you get when you open the cockpit the first time. Here we see a workspace just up front us, and for those who are familiar with the IDS software suite cockpit, recognizes the first difference. We're talking here now from a kind of workspace usage, so it is an area you can freely configure for your needs. So you can place the views where you can see the image of the camera, you can place your dialogues freely onto the screen, you can save the workspace, and you can build up workspaces for specific tasks. For example, we will now build up step by step a workspace to be able to do a white balance and set a perfect color representation. But first of all, I would like to give you a short introduction in also the new introduced toolbar, because it covers a lot of different applications which were in the former cockpit divided into different applications. First of all, with the camera and the plus sign, you open the next available camera. Automatically a camera gets opened and the image gets viewed in the workspace. With the list symbolic, you can open a so-called camera manager, where you see all your connected cameras to the system. Either they are USB or Ethernet. The cross closes all connected cameras and also closes all GUIs which are inside of the workspace. And next, we have here the bandwidth management. Bandwidth management enables you to balance the bandwidth when you have connected more than one Ethernet camera to your system. So usually when we talk about a 1 gig bandwidth, 1 gig cameras, if you connect two to it, you have to share the bandwidth between those two, and often today's cameras are providing too much data for the 1 gig bandwidth. The bandwidth manager helps you either to automatically or by your own manually setting up the bandwidth between those cameras. So you assign every camera the necessary bandwidth to do the job. The next icon shows the USB manager, the USB driver manager, where you can handle the USB drivers, and you can open with the log task, you can open the log view to see what happens during your work with the cockpit. Last but not least, the gear gives you the possibility to set the basic parameters of the cockpit itself. For example, to switch it into a dark mode. That's also brand new because we see the cockpit is also used in different light environments, for example in labs where it is more dark, and then it's better for the eyes to change into a different mode, into a different view mode. So per default we added a bright and a dark mode, and you're also able to define your own custom modes. Then, as I told, we have a workspace concept, so it makes sense to select a desired workspace. All workspaces are here later on in this drop-down. There you can choose the workspace you need. Right beside of this, there is the button to create and to delete workspaces. And last but not least, an information button, which gives you necessary information about the used application. But I would say it's quite boring to go step by step through these items. I would now say, let's go live and directly work with the function and features of the new IDS cockpit. Let's start. So now we are here in the new cockpit, and we start with an empty workspace. First of all, we open the camera manager and we see we have two different USB 3 cameras connected. We have the brand new XCP and the brand new XLE connected to the system. We start with configuring the XCP. So pressing the plus sign here or a double click on the camera itself just opens up the window and we see a live image of the camera. For sure, we see, whoa, we don't have best fitting colors. And now I show you different methods and possibilities to set up a perfect color representation. But before we start with this, I would like to give you a short introduction on the image screen here. So let's close the camera manager. All necessary tools are now inside of this screen. So on the upper side, on top, you have all the tools to interact with the image you can see. For example, now we fit to image, we can do a one-to-one representation here, or we can here go into full screen. We can give us a histogram, which we need later on to set up the white balance. We get line view here, which is a different kind of histogram, now not done on the complete view, only to the lines you see here on the screen. We can have a magnification here, we can set the magnification factor, we can measure the sharpness of the image. Here it is globally measured. We could also set our eyes. And then we have features to interact and annotate inside the images, from painting a rectangle, measuring something, or enabling a cross. So let's switch off these features. Get rid of the annotations. Last but not least, you can here save images to the disk. On the left side, from the top to the bottom, you have different buttons to interact with the camera parameters here. So we have to start image acquisition, stop live image acquisition. We have here a kind of magic button, which I get in later on. And here from setting the ROI till down, adding chunks to the image, or working with the generic parameter tree, everything interacting with the camera is on the left side. So I promise you there are different possibilities to come to a perfect color representation, which is, as we could all see, is here not given. The easiest way is here our magic star sprinkling button. Just press on it, and then automatically in the background the software, the host software, does a white balance and checks the exposure time and so on, so that with this one single click you normally get the perfect representation. For example, if you would like to visualize the image of the camera for visual inspection, for example. What's also done here, it's automatically hot pixel correction is activated so that you really get a pretty nice, quite nice picture. So that would be the easiest way, but often this is not really applicable for your application because, for example, you do not need hot pixel correction when you want to do measurement something, or you would like to adjust the white balance by your own desires. Also here we have a lot of controls available. So let's start. We reset the this button. We reset to a default setup as is shown here, and now we start to do white balance manually. But before we do with this, I told you that we would like to create a workspace, and a workspace then means we will have the controls available also to work with other cameras. And one thing I personally would like to know when I work with cameras, and I switch cameras pretty often, what kind of sensor is inside of the camera. This is a feature which is given by the GenICam information of the camera, which is included in the generic parameters tree. So let us grab this tree, put it here on the left side, arrange the views a bit, and then we start searching for sensor. As you can see, the findings gets highlighted and also the list reduces to the findings. And here we are. Here we have the sensor information, and we introduced a feature that you can build out a custom dialog based on this parameter tree. So I press this button here and I say, okay, I'm interested in the width, the height, the sensor name, and the pixel size. As we are working normally with squared pixel, width and height are the same, so it's good enough to use one of these values. And then I click this Customize Dialog button, and I get a customized dialog out of the generic parameter tree. It would be also feasible if it is available that you can put or that buttons get put here to start, stop, save, or do any other task. So it's really, you reduce this parameter tree of the desired nodes you would like to interact or get informed about it. So here we have the sensor information, and as it is feasible in the workspace to open more than one camera, the dialogs are always connected by a kind of line to the image they belong to. I'll put this down right here. Perfect. Okay, the next activity I would like to do is Okay, I'm only interested, or my region of interest is only in the area where the colors are at the moment, so I can reduce my region of interest to this area. This can be either done here by working with the sliders here, or I can take this nice little feature where I can click inside of the image and draw an arrow eye. You may recognize that the image gets red now. This is because at the moment we do not have a valid size of an arrow eye. So this arrow eye could not be visualized. But when we increase the size, we get to a valid arrow eye size. If I release the button, my image gets reduced to the region of interest. Okay, so we do not need this dialog anymore. What we need to do a white balance is, on the one hand, we need the exposure time, which is here in the image control dialog, and we need the color representation, which is here in this color dialog. Before I showed you with this magic button the auto features, which are also available here inside of this dialog. So there you can do more fine granular auto features. You can set auto exposure, auto gain, and also do an auto white balance. If it is available, you can choose if you work or use the features from the camera or from the host system. Here we have two low-cost cameras which have these features only on the host system, not on the camera itself. So to make it a little bit interesting, let's just change gain a bit and make an not that good exposure time. So now we want to do white balancing out of this image manually. If we would have only a white image, which you could normally also use for white balancing, we could now open the histogram and let fit the RGB curves together. For such kind of color chart, which we are using here, it's much more appropriate that we use the line view. And we put the line directly, the cross of the line, into a white field, which is in the upper right corner in a color checker here. As you can see, totally word values. Now we use the single red, green, and blue gains here to first start to get a color representation which makes a lot of sense. Normally, green gain is set to 1 because a sensor is sensitive in green. Normally, green is not an issue. Green is always available enough, so we put this back to 1. Now we have way too much red and way too less blue. So we reduce the red one, and we see that we have still an overexposed image. So we reduce the exposure time to a point where we get here also valid information in the green area. If you don't see it, I will increase it. So you see we have here a line. So green is way overexposed. So we bring it to a valid value, and then we see, okay, blue is completely missing in the image, so we increase blue that it reaches the green. Now we misread. And now we have a little bit too less. Then we go stepwise here. Increase blue, increase red, so that the lines are matching. And now as last step, we can adjust the exposure time so that white really comes to 255, which means representing a white value. In general, that's it. We have done a white balance. So now I could go there and write down every parameter which is now set in the cockpit and reprogram it in my machine vision application, or reset it in my machine vision application. But I told you in this session we will also give you a hands-on how to easily reuse the parameters you set here inside of the cockpit. You can save the parameters either inside of the camera itself or as a parameter file on the PC. So we'll go here to this icon. Let's drag this dialog also a bit outside. And then you can choose here the current user set, which is currently set. This is default. This is also the user set on camera startup. And you have two setups, two user sets where you can store the information. So we will now use user set 0. We press save. And now this color representation is stored in user set 0. So let's check. We load default, kind of totally different. We choose user set 0, we load it, and we're back on the set properties. Similar, you can save the parameters to disk. White balance XCP. And now you're able to reload this from disk. Here, for sure, you can store more than 2 user sets because you store it on the file on your PC. You can do as much as you like. Okay, now we've done white balancing for this one single camera. And we created a dialog setup which we would like to have also for other cameras. So now the workspace comes into game. Of course, let us create a new workspace with the plus sign here on the right, which I pressed here. We create a new workspace. We give this a name, white balance camera, press enter, and now this workspace is stored and we can reuse it with other cameras. To show this, we just stop the XCP and we open up the XLE. So we could also, with this camera, if we would like to do something different, we could also build up a new workspace here or switch to no workspace or whatever. Even a possibility is if this laptop majorly is majorly used for setting white balance, we could say, okay, our default workspace shall be white balance camera. So we set this as a default workspace, and the next time we open up this IDS-P cockpit, it's directly opened with the white balance workspace. Okay, and also here, I mean, I wouldn't let you go to without showing a nice image from an IDS camera. We use now here again the auto features. We set auto exposure to once, quite nice. We set auto white balance to once. And then we can check with the line view if it fits to our needs. And I would say this is nearly as good, or it is as good, as we did it manually. So also here, don't be afraid to use the auto features of the peak. So don't be afraid to use the auto features of IDS Peak. There gives you the same quality as you do it manually, and even if you don't trust, just go there and use line view or histogram to validate, or even if you would like to adjust to your own needs, to adjust the values again, but normally the auto features are working well good enough. Also here for this camera, we can switch to user set and save this information in the user set. And now you're able, with your machine vision application, if you reload there the user set 0, that you can directly work with these properties, and there is no need to program every property with a single line of code. Okay, let's switch back to the presentation. This was a short live demo of the IDS Peak Cockpit, where I introduced you to the workspace handling of the cockpit and gave you a hands-on how to set up a camera, exposure time and white balance to get a good image representation, a good color representation, and store this information in a parameter file, so that you are able in your machine vision application to reload this parameter file. I hope I could give you some insights into the new upcoming IDS Peak Cockpit. If you have any questions, just ask them now, or later on come to our webpage and check the contact formula and send us your questions, or contact directly our sales team. Thanks.